Well, welcome back, everybody. We are in the home stretch here as we finish up these last few exercises in these last two sessions. Where I want to pick up is multi-data analysis. I think multi-data analysis is one of the most powerful aspects of TradeStation charting and EasyLanguage. It allows us to bring in multiple symbols into a chart at the same interval or different symbols at different intervals or the same symbol at different intervals. So there's really not a lot of limitations on what you can do within a multi-data chart. And there's some cool multi-data chart features like percent change charts, and you can put indicators on different data streams. It's really a very powerful feature of the TradeStation platform. The way that multi-data works in EasyLanguage is that each data stream in the chart is going to have a data number assigned to each of those data streams. The symbol that creates the chart is always data 1, and data 1 is always assumed whenever you're referencing price points. So when you say open, high, low, close, EasyLanguage assumes you mean data 1. If you are going to reference those same price points on a second or third data stream, then you have to be explicit and you have to say data 2, data 3, data 4, that kind of thing. Using the data keyword and a multi-data chart, you can actually have 50 different data streams in one chart. So you could create your own index as well. So you could create, maybe put 30 symbols in a chart and create a weighted index of those symbols and track that index historically. So lots of different things that you can do with this. And with EasyLanguage Objects, which is a more advanced set of functionality that sits on top of the EasyLanguage that we're learning now, you really have access to an unlimited number of symbols because EasyLanguage Objects allows you to access any data stream programmatically without having to have it in the chart. So lots of flexibility here if you want to do this kind of analysis. All right, let's look at the chart. Everybody should see my chart now. By the way, can we just do a quick sound check? Everybody hearing me okay, right? I guess I should have asked that about 3 minutes ago. But everybody can hear me okay? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So what we have here is a very typical multi-data chart. This is Microsoft at 30 minutes. That's the green bars that you see across the top there. And then below that you see Microsoft at 60 minutes. So basically this is a multi-data chart where Microsoft at 30 minutes is data 1 and Microsoft at 60 minutes is data 2. The way that you create a multi-data chart is simply by going to Insert, Symbol. So Insert Symbol allows you to add another data stream to the chart up to 50 data streams. Sure, let me see if I can adjust the screen a little bit here for you. That a little bit bigger. And I'll zoom in a little bit here. Excellent. Okay, good. So one of the things that I want to show you how to do is to be able to insert indicators on different data streams within the chart. This is a little tricky, and you might have a little bit of trouble finding that in the help on how to do this. So I'm going to show you how this works right now. If I want to insert an indicator on the data 1 data stream here, basically what I can do is I can go to Insert, Indicator, and this is what we do all the time, right? We're going to put a moving average on this indicator, on this data stream. So this is a moving average 1 indicator, and we're going to make that a 20 bar moving average. So there you can see the moving average on the bars. And I'm going to change this to a 20 bar moving average in the inputs, and I make it a little bit thicker so it's easier to see. So 20 bar moving average. That's going to be one of the conditions of the strategy we're going to write. So we're going to write a multi-data strategy that looks for the close of the bar to be greater than that 20 bar moving average. And then as a confirmation, we're going to want the close of the data 2 symbol, in this case the 60-minute bars, a longer time frame, to be greater than the average of data 2, which will be a 50 bar moving average. So that'll be a longer term moving average on a 60-minute bar as a confirmation. So as long as the prices are above the moving averages on both data streams, then it will enter a trade. You can see we have a trade right here. And so let me show you how to insert the moving average onto the second data stream. So here we're going to go to Insert Indicator. And again, we're going to select Moving Average one line. This time I'm going to click Prompt for Format. Click OK. That takes me right into the formatting dialog. And the first thing I want to show you is how to put it on data 2. So here I'm going to select the General tab. And this drop-down says Base Study On. And here you can see the 2 data streams that are in the chart. So this is how you apply an indicator to one of the other data streams in the chart. In this case, we're going to apply this indicator to the 60-minute bars, just like that. I'm going to change the length to 50 bars, so this will be a 50 bar moving average, and I'll make it a little bit thicker so we can see it. So there is our 50 bar moving average and our 20 bar moving average on those 2 data streams. Now you'll notice that it stops right here because there's not a lot of historical data in this chart. We can add a little bit more historical data. Go to Format Symbol. Notice the Format Symbol dialog now has 2 symbols that we can format. We can remove data 2, but you can never remove data 1. Data 1 is always, you can change the symbol for data 1, but you can't remove it from the chart. Chart must always have a data 1 symbol. So here I'm going to go to Format, and I'm just going to change this, instead of 15 days back, we'll make it 50 days back. That changes it for both data streams automatically. When I click Close, it'll add that additional historical data. We can see a few trades here that it makes. So the idea is when the close is above the 20-day moving average, now notice that the close was actually above the 20-day moving average back here. But we didn't get a confirmation yet that the close was above the 50-day moving average until right here. On this bar, the condition is true on both data streams, and the strategy generates an order at the open of the next bar. And there's our trade. So that's the strategy we're going to write. So let's go to the development environment. This is File, New, Strategy. This is exclamation 29 multi-data moving average. Select my template to none and click OK. All right, so we need a couple of inputs. We need the average length for data 1, which we are going to use set at 20. That's the indicator that we put in there. And we need another input, which is the average length for data 2, and that will be 50. So that's why I put those 2 moving averages in the chart at 20 and 50 so that they would mimic the strategy rules that we're going to create here. So we need some variables. We need the average for data 1. We'll initialize that to 0. And we need the average for data 2, which we'll initialize to 0 as well. Okay. So calculating a moving average for data 1 is, we've done that a couple of times in the class already. We're just going to use the average function. It's the average close for our average length data 1 input, which is 20 bars. So very, very simple. Now I could say data 1 here, just to be clear, but that's assumed. In fact, in all of the exercises that we've done up until this point, EasyLanguage assumes we're talking about data 1 because 1, there hasn't been a second data stream in any of the charts, and 2, we haven't used the reserve word data 2 or data 3. So EasyLanguage assumes we're talking about data 1 here. So the average for data 2 is going to be the average close for our average length of data 2 input, which is 50 bars. In this case, we have to specify that we want this average close to be based on the data 2 data stream. There's a couple of ways you can do it. One is you can put it outside of the function like this, data 2. And that is the preferred way that I like to do it. You can also come in here and say close of data 2, like this. That's another way of doing it. Either way will work, and either way is correct. The only caveat that I will give you is that if you do it this way, and that function is looking at other price points, those other price points will be considered data 1. Because here we're saying just the close of this function is going to look at data 2. So if there are other references to other price points within the function, they're going to revert back to data 1. Whereas if I set data 2 back here, then everything about that function is related to data 2. And that's just a little more clear in my mind. So here's our rules. If the close is greater than the average of data 1, so that's the close of data 1 is greater than the average of data 1, and the close of data 2 is greater than the average data 2. Then we're going to buy next bar at market. As soon as the condition is not true, else, we're going to sell that position next bar at market. So here we're just doing the long side of this trade. As a review, it might be fun to come in here and write the short side of that and see how it tests both long and short. But this we're writing as a long-only strategy. So two conditions: if the close of data 1 is greater than the average of data 1, the 20-bar average of data 1, and the close of data 2 is greater than the 50-bar average of data 2, then we're going to buy next bar at market. As soon as that condition is no longer true, we're going to close the position with a sell at market. I'm going to press F3 to verify this. So here I have a syntax error. So average length, I didn't need the A up here. So you got to make sure that when you see that error, that's a very common error. You've probably seen it a few times already. Whenever you get that unknown identifier error here in the output bar at the bottom, that tells you that something's spelled wrong, because EasyLanguage is not recognizing that word. It's not a reserve word. It's not a function. It's not a variable that's spelled correctly, or it's not an input that's spelled correctly. One of those things is typically what's going on there. So here I fixed that, and now we're saved and verified. So let's go back to the chart and look at that exit condition. So here, as I said, as soon as both closes are above the moving averages, we get our buy. And we're holding it until one of the closes dips back below its moving average. So here, the close crossed below the 20-bar moving average, and we got out of that trade on the next bar at market. So that's the way multi-data works. You can create multi-data indicators, pairs trading, spreads trading, relative strength. All of these kinds of things can be done in a chart using this multi-data concept. And as I said, you can use data 2, data 3, data 4, up to data 50. The only restriction that we really have for multi-data analysis is that you must use time-based charts. So in other words, you have to use minute, daily, weekly, monthly charts. You can't use tick charts or volume charts, and you can't use any of the price-based charts. like range bars or Kagi charts, Renko. Those cannot be multi-data charts at this time. You have to focus on time-based charts for your analysis. Okay, so that's multi-data analysis. Before I go into this next topic, I want to kind of completely go off topic for one moment and ask you if you have seen or you have downloaded yet the new TradeStation trading app that we released last week. Has anybody, if anybody has seen it, can you type in yes into the chat? Just kind of get an idea of how effective we are at communicating these kinds of new things to customers. So I just want to just briefly show you how you can access that. I'm going to put into the chat the TradeStation trading app link. This is from the trading app store. It's absolutely free. And I'm going to go back to TradeStation for a second and show you what it looks like real quick. Just take 2 minutes. So here I've already downloaded, obviously, from my account. I'm going to click on Trading Apps. And here in the bottom right, you can see when you install it from the Trading App Store that you get this icon that says TradeStation. This is a trading app. It's independent of a chart or it's independent of radar screen. You can click on that and it opens up this, this viewer. And this gives you access to all of the videos videos here, organized by featured videos, TradeStation tools, asset class, market analysis, and you can actually even see speaker playlists for someone that you follow. You can see all the upcoming live events and register for them here, and you can see the most recent videos that we've uploaded. So for example, if I click on a featured playlist here, I can see all of the videos that we'd like you to take a look at that that we've recently added that we want to draw your attention to. So here you can see the playlist of all of those featured videos. So this lives inside the TradeStation platform, and it makes it very easy to access all of the educational videos, see what upcoming events there are, and just kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on with TradeStation. So when you get a chance, download the app and tell me what you think about it. Okay, dynamic formatting. So as fun as EasyLanguage is, it's more fun when you know how to use the dynamic formatting commands within EasyLanguage. We call these a lot of different things. I think the term I use for these the most is smart styling. Smart styling means that I can change the color or thickness of a plot based on some condition or some rule that's going on in the calculation. There are 3 dynamic formatting reserved words in EasyLanguage. There's set plot color and set plot width. Those are both used in charting. And then there's set plot background color, BG color, for radar screen. And we'll do something in radar. We'll do a couple of things in radar screen today before the end. But this allows us to highlight and better visualize some of the rules and some of the calculations within our indicators. And you'll see a good example of that here in the next exercise, which is high volume bars. So here I'm going to go to the chart. And this is an indicator that is identifying those bars that have a specific threshold of high volume. This is Microsoft on a 30-minute chart, and my threshold is 500,000 shares. So anytime, actually my threshold is 5 million shares for Microsoft. So anytime a 30-minute bar in Microsoft trades 5 million shares, I want to highlight that bar by making it thicker and making it yellow. And you can see here that we've had a lot of those kind of bars in the last few days here. And so this is just a way to identify those high volatility, high volume bars. Very simple. But what's cool about it is the smart styling, the ability to change that color and to make it a little bit thicker. So it really makes it pop visually. So this is an easy one to write. Let's write this one. I'm going to go to the development environment. This is File, New, Indicator. This is exclamation 30, high volume bars. So we need an input, which is going to be the high volume threshold. So I'm going to call that high volume, and I'm going to make it 5 million. Now I don't need any variables here because we're not going to be calculating anything. We're just going to be making a simple comparison. So here I can say if ticks is greater than high volume, then begin. So when that happens, I want to set my plot color for plot 1. We haven't created plot 1 yet, but we will. For plot 1, I want that to be yellow. Now the colors you can use in EasyLanguage, there are a number of preset color words. If you go to the dictionary, under the namespace EasyLanguage, you can see there's a colors category here, and you can see the 20 or so colors that are here. You'll also notice that there's an RGB function that allows us to put in a RGB code, so red, green, blue code, and we can then access any of the 16 million colors that are available to EasyLanguage. And you can actually see those codes inside the formatting dialogues. So each of the colors has to be between 0 and 255. And if you multiply 255 by 255 by 255, you get 16 million colors. That's the concept. Or you can use any of the 20 pre-built RGB colors. That's what we'll do here. We'll use yellow. So then we're going to set plot width again for plot 1, and we're going to make it thicker. We're going to make it the 4 thickness. So there are 7 thicknesses that you can access. Those are the same thicknesses that you see in the formatting dialogues, from very thin to very thick. The very thinnest is 0, and the very thickest is 6. So 4 is a thicker width. So plot 1 is tick, so this is just a customized volume indicator. And we'll verify that. So remember that the 1 that you see here stands for plot 1. So if you have multiple plots, plot 2, plot 3, plot 4, you can change the color or the width of any of the plots simply by changing that first parameter to the plot that you want to change it to. I'm going to go to Properties. Scaling for this indicator is right axis. We want this to be a histogram, but we don't want it to be too thick. By the way, here are the 7 thicknesses. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you can see what that 4 thickness looks like. 5, 6. And then chart color. So here we're going to make the volume red, because when we want to highlight one, it's going to show up as yellow. If I click on Other here, you can see that I can basically select any of the the colors that I want, and whenever I select a color, whatever that color is, I can see the RGB code here on the right-hand side. So if I want to set it to a very customized color, I can use the RGB function and then plug in the red, green, and blue values and receive and get that color, have that color displayed. But here we're going to go with red. And verify it to save those property changes. So set plot width and set plot color. Set plot color is also used as the foreground color in radar screen, which we'll look at a little bit later today. So radar screen has the concept of each value is in a cell, and there's a foreground and background color in that cell. Width doesn't come into play in radar screen, just like background color does not come into play in charting. So background color wouldn't make sense in charting. All right, so here I'm going to go back to the chart. And we can see that value. So let's say that we wanted something that was a little more responsive here. Let's say we want to change this so that anytime the volume goes over 3 million, we get that indication. Now we're going to get more of those. So smart styling. And really there are a lot of interesting indicators in TradeStation that use smart styling that you can use an example. A really interesting one is a moving average exponential ribbon. This is kind of an interesting multi-length kind of concept that uses smart styling. Here you can see it kind of has a gradient color as the moving averages get farther away from the price bars. So the smart styling really gives us a lot of flexibility in how we can visualize our indicators. Because EasyLanguage has access to 16 million colors, we also have the ability to create gradient colors. That's kind of what you're seeing here in the that we just looked at in the chart, where we were looking at different colors as they move away from the price bars and those different length moving averages. The gradient color function allows us to say, here is an indicator value, and when it's in between these two high and low ranges, if it's nearest to the low range, then I want it to be this color. If it's nearest to the high range, I want it to be a different color. But if it's somewhere in between, I want EasyLanguage to calculate a gradient color in between those 2 points. And so this can create, again, some very interesting visualizations of indicators, especially in radar screen, where we may be ranking a list of symbols on a particular value, and then we can use a gradient color to highlight that ranking. We'll use this a little bit later in some of our radar screen examples. I think in one of our radar screen examples, we'll use gradient color. So let's talk about radar screen. A radar screen is a real-time scanning tool that allows you to apply the same technical indicators that you would normally apply in a chart environment on one symbol. You can apply that same indicator to radar screen now on a multi-symbol environment, up to 1,000 symbols. Each row in radar screen is actually a chart, and you can set that row, each row in radar screen, to a different bar interval for whatever your needs are, or you can set them all to the same interval. It's really an incredibly flexible and powerful tool that allows you to quickly and easily sort and rank a list of symbols on any technical criteria in a quote environment in one window. And you'll see some of the power of radar screen as we go through a couple of these exercises. the way that we architected radar screen is that it would work exactly like a chart. So most of the indicators that come with TradeStation you can insert into radar screen without any modification at all. The only limitation to radar screen at this time is that it does not natively offer multi-data analysis like the chart does. So each row has to be a single symbol, and the analysis has to be based on a single symbol. But with EasyLanguage objects, that actually has changed, and with objects you can actually now create multi-data elements within radar screen. But in core EasyLanguage, the way that we are creating indicators, EasyLanguage only has access to one symbol, data 2, data 3, data 4. That concept doesn't exist in radar screen. So just like radar screen, or just like charting, we're going to use the plot statement to output values into a cell in radar screen. Each plot is a different column inside the radar screen window. So if you have a multi-plot indicator, you're going to get a different column for each of those plots. The other benefit of radar screen is that the plot statement can be used to output a true-false value or a text string label. So you can actually get very creative and put labels in the radar screen like bullish or bearish or buy or sell or alert messages, things that you can't do in charting. So that can be very, very powerful and as a visual as well. So here you can see we can plot a true-false condition. Condition 1 would be true-false, and that'll plot a true or false within the cell in radar screen. Obviously, you can plot numeric values. We've been using numeric values in all of the charting examples we've been using. Or you can use a plot statement to output a message like up bar or down bar based on a condition. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our real body average concept, and we're going to create that indicator for radar screen as a scan to tell us what symbols are in a bullish mode or in a bearish mode. And I'm going to go back to TradeStation here, and you can see that indicator that we're going to write here on the right-hand side. This is the same real body average calculation that we were doing before. And I have radar screen and the chart. See, I have that real body average indicator on a list of symbols here in radar screen. This is the Dow 30. And if I double click on the average real body calculation here, I can sort all the symbols in the Dow by their real body calculation. So I can see very quickly which ones are bullish and which ones are bearish, and I can see the actual value of that indicator here in radar screen. So this white color, I'm not a big fan of that. Let's see if we can make that black. Make that real body direction. Those both. Now it's fooling it. The color's fooling it, so we'll force it. For now, we'll force that foreground color to be black for both of these. There we go. Makes it a little bit easier to read. All right, so let's write this indicator. Here you can see the indicator in the chart. So that's the one we wrote, number 12. The one we wrote yesterday. So I'm going to go to the development environment. This is going to be File, New, Indicator. This is exclamation 31, real body, average for radar screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the indicator we wrote yesterday. I'm going to go to File, Open. So here's the File, Open dialog, and we wrote number 12 yesterday, which is here, real body average. I'm going to open that up because we're going to copy some code out of that. So here, this is a pretty simple version of an indicator from yesterday. I'm just going to highlight that code and paste it into our radar screen indicator. Now, the interesting thing is that you don't have to tell EasyLanguage, this is going to be used in radar screen or in charting. Maybe you're going to use it in both, but there's no special EasyLanguage instructions that are required in order for an indicator to work in radar screen or to work in charting. So here I'm going to create an input for the average length for our real body, and we'll make that 10. And I want to create another called direction, which will be the text label that we're going to plot inside of radar screen. So I'm going to create a new type of variable that we've never created before called a text variable. Notice that I'm just setting that to a null string, just 2 quotation marks in there. That tells EasyLanguage that this is going to be a variable that can only hold a text string within quotation marks. This can't hold a number, it can't hold true, false, it can only hold a text string. So that's a new kind of variable for us. I'm also going to create another variable which is the real body condition. So this will be a true-false condition. I'm going to set that to false as the initialization. So now this is a true-false variable. And now we've got all 3 types of variables here. We have a numeric variable, a string variable, and a true-false variable. So RB condition is going to equal average RB is greater than 0. So when it's greater than 0, that'll be true. When it's not greater than 0, it'll be false. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to say if RB condition is true, then our direction variable is going to equal bullish. Otherwise, the direction variable is going to equal bearish. So we're going to say if RB, and when we write the syntax like that, we mean that we want RB to be true. So that's we could say here RB equals true, but that's assumed if you just say if RB condition. So that means the same thing as RB condition equals true. When RB condition is true and the average is greater than 0, then we're going to plot bullish into the radar screen cell. And if it's not true, we're going to plot in bearish. Travis asks an interesting question. He says, can you convert a string to a number or a double? Yes, there's actually an EasyLanguage reserve word, which is string to num. So string to num allows you to convert a string to a number. And there's also the reverse. You can take a number and convert it to a string if you need to, string to num. So there's 2 functions in EasyLanguage that allow you to do that. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we want to set up our plots. So we're going to have 2 plots. One is the direction, which is our label. So this is the average RB direction. And then the other value that we want to actually plot is average RB. So we'll plot average RB. We don't need a 0 line for radar screen. We're actually just plotting the values within that cell. Let's verify this. Perfect. So the next thing that we want to do is that we want to change the background color of the cells based on a gradient color from the, from a maximum to minimum value. And so if we look at radar screen here again, you'll notice that it's from red to green, and there are some gradient colors here, but the gradient color isn't set very well. We're going to refine that gradient color here in a second. The other thing I want you to notice is the range of values. Here you can see the lowest value is minus 0.03, and the highest value, which is kind of difficult to read because of the white font there, is 0.16. So we need to know what the roughly to plug that into the gradient color. So here we'll keep those two numbers in mind as we write our gradient color. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to set the plot background color. So this is the background color function for plot 1. And the color we're going to set it to is a gradient color. So we're going to use the gradient color function. And so the first parameter to the gradient color function is the indicator value that we're going to use for the gradient color, which is average RB. And then we need to set the lowest value and the highest value. So the lowest value that we're going to use here is going to be minus 0.33. And actually it's 0.033 if you remember in radar screen it was 0.03 I think was the lowest value. And we'll make that, we'll set the highest value to the same thing, 0.033. And again, those numbers are somewhat in flux depending on what the values are and what the interval is. If you change the interval, then the average RB values are going to be higher or lower depending on the interval. And so you'll always have to come in here and kind of adjust that. What I would do if this is an indicator that I was using all the time, is that I would make these inputs so that I could adjust the gradient color with an input very easily just by looking at the values in the window. So that might be something to think about here for this as a modification to this indicator. So when it's at the lower value of minus 0.33, then it should be a bright red. And when it's at the bullish end, it should be a bright green. And then the gradient color, if it's somewhere in between, then the gradient color will adjust that for us automatically. So we want to do that for plot 1. I'm going to just make a copy of that and do the same thing for plot 2. All right, so I missed parentheses here and here. And that verifies. All right, so there's a few things about radar screen that you need to be aware of, and I'm going to go to the properties here so we can talk about some of those unique properties related to radar screen. So one of the first things you'll notice here on the General tab is that there's a checkbox that says Load Additional Data for Accumulation Calculations. What this does is it tells radar screen how many bars of history to load. This is a completely different environment than a chart, because in a chart, the amount of data that you load into the chart is predetermined from the format symbol dialog. But in radar screen, we don't do that. In radar screen, we want to try to optimize the amount of data in the window because the window is now operating on hundreds of symbols. And so we want to try to mitigate how much resources radar screen takes up by being smart about how much history that we load into the window. So that by default, radar screen only loads the max bars back number of data within the chart. In this case, that's 10 bars of data. So what I typically like to do is I like to give radar screen a little more additional data for calculations in case it needs it. And so here, since I don't know, I might change that average length to 20 or 50. I might add 50 additional bars of data just so that radar screen has enough data to operate on. So this is really, there's not an exact science to how much history to load to radar screen. It really depends on the calculations that are going on within that indicator. There are indicators like exponential moving averages and RSI, which are recursive calculations. They look at the previous bar's value of the indicator and uses that in the current bar's value of the indicator. So these types of recursive calculations sometimes require many additional bars of history than max bars back. So the thing to do is to put the indicator in a chart and put the indicator in radar screen and add additional data until they match. And that's the only way to know how much history will be required for them to match exactly. Sometimes it'll only need a couple of bars of history. Sometimes it'll need a couple hundred bars of history, like an exponential moving average. So just keep that in mind, that you may need to add additional bars from time to time. Grid style is how we want the data to display. So average RB direction is text. So we're going to select text as the style, and we're going to center it. Average RB is a number. We can use same as underline. We can use same as underlying data here, or we can make it a number with, say, 2 decimal places. Either way would work. Grid color. Here I'm just going to use the application default, but I am going to make the foreground color black for both of them. I'm going to fix it at black just in case. So here I'm going to click OK and verify that. And let's see what it looks like compared to the one that comes with the course. So here I'm going to go to Insert Indicator. So notice the Insert Indicator dialog is very different for radar screen. Here you can see all of the columns that are already in radar screen on the right, including the sample course indicator. And so we're going to come to the top here, and we're going to select the one that body average RS and add that into the window. So you can see black looks a little bit better there, and you can see the gradient color is a little bit better because we were a little smarter about the higher and lower limits there. So I'm going to remove this one. And by double clicking on average RB, I can sort it. We can see that really cool gradient color there. Here we can check to see if the indicator calculation is matching up. So Microsoft is 0.03. And if I look here in the chart, I can see the last value in the chart is 0.03. So they're matching up. So a radar screen indicator and a charting indicator are basically, they look exactly the same. I have the ability to change the background color, which I don't have in charting. And I can use the gradient color to give me a cool gradient color if I'm sorting or ranking by a particular indicator value. But the code here is exactly the same structure as all the indicators we've written so far. Inputs, variables, calculations, plotting. Here I'm back at radar screen. Just real quick, I'm going to show you insert indicator here. So a standard indicator like stochastic. I'm going to add that into the window. I'm going to click Format here before we insert it. Go to the General tab. Notice that the standard indicator stochastic that comes with TradeStation 100 bars of history because, again, this is a recursive calculation. So all of the indicators that come with TradeStation, we've done the work of going through each of those indicators and figuring out how many bars of additional data are required for it to match up with charting. So we've done that for you automatically. So here I'm going to click OK and insert stochastic into the window. So here you can see the slow K and slow D. So it loaded those 200 bars of history for each of those symbols. So it's very fast. Data loading is very quick. And now I can quickly sort and rank all the symbols in this window by its stochastic value. So I can see which ones are the most oversold simply by double-clicking on a column. Radar Screen also has a cool feature called blank row group sorting. By putting in a blank row, Radar Screen now sorts between the two groups, which is very different than the way Excel behaves. So here you can create unique sort groups simply by putting a blank space in between your symbols. Now when I double-click, it sorts in between the two groups instead of sorting as one list. Also, if there's columns that you don't need in Radar Screen, you can right-click on the column heading and you can remove certain plots. So if I didn't want the overbought or I didn't want the oversold columns, which are typically used for charting, not for Radar Screen anyway, I can remove those extra plots. So very unique technology. There's really nothing else like that in the world, like Radar Screen. There are a few real-time scanners, but they typically have just a limited number of columns and not the ability to really look at 1,000 symbols in real time across any interval that you need. It's really a unique real-time scanning tool. Okay, let's get into a couple of topics that allow you to create some more interesting and a little more powerful type of indicators. And the first concept that I want to talk about is capturing values with variables. Up until now, we've been using variables to calculate and hold values on every bar. Basically, if we had a moving average or we have our real body indicator, basically we calculate our formulas on every bar and store them in a variable. But sometimes we want to use variables to capture values that happen sporadically throughout the chart. So for example, maybe there's an event in the chart, and when that event occurs, I want to capture a value from the bar. Let's say there's a double bottom. So let's say that there's a double bottom pattern, and I've identified a way of looking at a double pattern, double the bottom pattern. In fact, I had a question from one of you regarding that, and I'll be answering that shortly. But when that double bottom occurs, maybe I want to capture what the price of that double bottom is and use that as a support level in the chart for a while. So how do you do that? Well, the way you do that is that you simply put the variable assignment statement inside of a true-false condition. So here, I want to capture the net change from the close of the first bar of the day from the close of the last bar of yesterday. So I have a condition that says if time equals first bar time of the session, that's first bar time of the session, then value 1 is going to equal the close minus the close of 1 bar ago. This condition is only true on 1 bar each day on an intraday chart. So on the first bar of each day, it's going to calculate this formula and store it in value 1. And value 1 is going to hold that value for every bar on that chart until the next day when this value will get reset, when a new calculation will come in and reset value 1. This gives us the ability to look for events and then capture an important value related to that event, and then use that value somewhere else in our rules, either as a part of a strategy or part of an alert or part of an additional calculation. But the key mechanism here that you need to understand is that variables hold their value bar by bar. So if you've set a variable in a condition, that value is never going to change until you either that condition is true again or you change it based on some other condition. So variables hold their value bar by bar by bar unless you change them or recalculate them. Very important to remember. Just real quick before we write this exercise, Travis, we're going to talk about that in the last exercise of the day. We will talk about how to output values for debugging or so you can see exactly how to see what's going on with your code. So that'll be a topic that we talk about at the very end. So the next exercise we're going to do is kind of an interesting one. It allows us to capture the high of the day and the low of the day on an intraday chart. So if you look at the chart here, this is a 30-minute chart of Microsoft. And if I want to know what the high of the day or the low of the day is historically on a chart, how would I do that? The reserve words high and low are high and low of the bar. And so there really are no reserve words inside of EasyLanguage that makes it easy to figure out what the high of the day or the low of the day is on an intraday chart. Now, there are some words in real time, day high and day low, which are used in radar screen, which tells us what the high and low of the day is on the real-time bar. But historically, it's a little trickier. And there's actually some functions that we've created, which are called series functions, that allow us to do this kind of work with functions. But we're going to write this as an exercise to show you how to capture values and hold those values on a bar-by-bar basis. Take a look at one of the days here. In fact, we'll look at today. We'll zoom in on today. So today, you can see that this is the first bar of today. And we set a little dot at the low of the bar, and we set another little dot at the high of the bar based on that first bar, because we want to keep track of what the high of the day is and what the low of the day is. So that first bar always sets the high and low of the day to start. That's our reset. Every day we reset our high and low variable to the first bar, and because that first bar is in fact the high and low of the day so far. But then on the next bar, you can see that the low of the bar is above the low of the first bar, so we've held that value from the first bar to the second bar. So that continues to be the low of the day on bar-by-bar basis. Whenever we hit a new high, though, we move that dot to that new high. So here, this made the high of the day right here around 12 o'clock. And then we kind of been trading off of that high. But here we can see that high as those dots are carried forward bar by bar. So if we need to know what the high and low of the day is, we just have to reference those two variables, the day high and day low variable that we're calculating on a bar by bar value, a bar by bar basis that are holding their value. So let's write this, get a feel for this. So this is file new indicator. This is exclamation 32 intraday high-low. So we don't have any inputs here. We're just going to calculate the high and low. So this is more of an informational type indicator. So we need the day high, which I'll initialize to 0. And I need the day low, which I'll initialize to 0. So two variables there. So on the first bar of each day, we need to reset those two variables and set them to the high and low of that first bar as our reset. So here I'm going to say if time equals session first bar time, and the parameters for that are 1, 1. These are related to the different sessions that you can set with the custom sessions. 1 by 1 means that we're just going to use the normal sessions. So here, when we're on the first bar of the day, we're going to reset those variables. But then every bar after that, we're going to test to see if there's a new high. And if there is a new high or there's a new low, we're going to reset our variable to that value. So first bar of each session, we're going to set day high to equal the high of that first bar, and we're going to set day low to equal the low of that first bar. And then each bar after that, we're going to check to see if we have a new high or a new low. So this is how it works. And I love this logic. It's, it's simple but elegant. If the high is greater than day high, then day high equals the high of the bar. So think about that. But it's very straightforward. If the low of the bar is less than the day low that we've calculated so far, then D low equals the low of that bar. And that's all there is to it. So basically we just test. Basically we just test to see whether or not there's a new high or a new low on the current bar. And if there is, then that's obviously the new high of the day or the new low of the day. All right, so we want to make sure that we have enough data to start the calculation. And so I'm going to say if D low is greater than 0, then I know that we've had a new day. We've hit the first session. So if day low is greater than 0, then begin. Plot 1 is going to be day high. And plot 2 is going to be D low. And that's it. So the key thing here is that on the first bar we're resetting those variables. But then every bar after that, we only change the value if we hit a new high or a new low. And if we don't hit a new high or new low, then that D high and D low are going to hold their value on a bar-by-bar basis until we either hit a new high or new low, or we reset it on the first bar of the next day. The properties for this indicator are same axis as underlying data. We want this to plot on the bars. The style is going to be a cross. We just want a dot. We don't want a line here because what will end up happening is we'll get lines from the previous session to the current session, and those diagonal lines are going to kind of look funky on the chart. So I've been using just a point or a cross to make this to look better. And then the color, D high is going to be green and D low will be red. So let's see what that looks like. Let's see if we got it right. So I'm going to remove this one from the chart. Insert indicator. This is 32 intraday high-low. And there you can see it's holding its low and it's holding the high. This is an interesting indicator to look at historically. Very often, the high and low is the first bar of the day. I haven't figured out how to trade that yet in 10 years, but there's got to be something there. So here you can see the first bar is pretty much the high and low for the whole day. Here the low is the low for the whole day. High is the high for the whole day. interesting concept. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a really short 10-minute break and come back. I'm going to grab a soda, and we'll come back and we'll finish up. We have a couple more exercises to finish here. So we will be back at 2:45 Eastern Time. Let's grab a cup of coffee, and we'll come back and finish up. And I have some things to give you when we come back from the break.